In the South China Sea, a dangerous standoff is unfolding between China and the Philippines. Tensions have been simmering for years, but recent events have brought the situation to a boiling point. Naval vessels from both sides now patrol these contested waters, their presence a constant reminder of the fragile peace that hangs in the balance. This isn't just a territorial squabble. These waters are a vital artery for global trade, with trillions in goods passing through each year. The South China Sea is one of the world's busiest maritime highways, connecting factories in Asia to markets across the globe. Oil, gas, electronics, and food supplies all depend on the safe passage of ships through these lanes. Any disruption here could ripple across the world, affecting everything from your smartphone to your car. Even a brief conflict could send shockwaves through supply chains, driving up prices and causing shortages in everyday products. The stakes are not just regional, they're global. China's Coast Guard and maritime militia use aggressive tactics, often shadowing or blocking Philippine vessels. Meanwhile, the Philippines, under new leadership, is pushing back with unprecedented resolve, determined to defend its claims and protect its fishermen. Each encounter at sea is a test of nerves and national will. The heart of the conflict lies in places like Scarborough and Sabina Shoal, symbols of national pride and sovereignty for both countries. These tiny islands and reefs are more than just land. They represent history, identity, and the promise of resources beneath the waves. The stakes are high, as diplomacy clashes with military posturing. Every negotiation is shadowed by the threat of escalation, and every show of force risks sparking a wider conflict that could draw in other nations. The world is watching closely, knowing the future of international law and regional peace is being tested in these contested waters. The outcome here could set a precedent for how disputes are resolved or inflamed across the globe. Understanding this complex situation is essential for everyone, not just world leaders. The choices made here will shape the future of trade, security, and cooperation in Asia and beyond. Staying informed is the first step toward a more peaceful world. The roots of today's conflict trace back to China's 9-line map from the 1940s, claiming nearly 90% of the South China Sea. These claims overlap with the exclusive economic zones of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. For decades, disputes simmered quietly, but as China's power grew, so did its assertiveness, turning fishing grounds into military flashpoints. China's island-building campaign has transformed reefs into military outposts, fundamentally altering the region's security landscape. Filipino fishermen now face Chinese patrols in waters their families have relied on for generations. The dispute is no longer abstract. It's a daily reality for coastal communities and a defining security challenge for Manila. The Philippines is forced to rethink how it defends its sovereign rights. The Philippines has launched a bold new strategy: preventive deployment. This approach marks a significant shift in how Manila asserts its rights in the South China Sea, moving from reactive measures to a more proactive stance. By taking the initiative, the Philippines aims to shape events at sea rather than simply responding to them. At Sabina Shoal, the Philippine Coast Guard now maintains a constant, round-the-clock presence. Their mission is clear: to block any Chinese attempt to occupy, build, or even establish a foothold on the reef. This ongoing deployment not only protects Philippine interests, but also reassures local fishermen who depend on these waters for their livelihood. By using a Coast Guard ship instead of a Navy vessel, Manila frames its actions as law enforcement, not military escalation. This careful distinction is meant to avoid provoking open conflict, while still sending a strong message about sovereignty and the rule of law. This proactive move is a direct response to intelligence suggesting that China may soon try to reclaim or fortify Sabina Shoal. Manila's decision is based on credible reports and a growing sense of urgency as Chinese maritime activity increases in the area. The recent modernization of the Philippine Coast Guard has made this possible. With new ships, better equipment, and improved training, Manila is now better prepared to stand its ground and defend its maritime claims. But the risks are real. Close encounters between ships could easily spark a crisis. One wrong move, or a simple miscalculation could escalate tensions into a dangerous confrontation at sea. The world is watching closely to see if this new posture by the Philippines will deter China, or if it might provoke further escalation. The outcome could set a precedent for other disputes in the region. The stakes at Sabina Shoal are higher than ever. What happens here could shape the future of the South China Sea and the balance of power in Asia for years to come. China's response has been swift, flexing its military muscle at Scarborough Shoal. Recent combat readiness patrols by Chinese warships and jets send a clear message. Beijing's claims are non-negotiable. Scarborough Shoal is deeply symbolic for both nations. Its loss in 2012 was a humiliation for the Philippines, a strategic gain for China. By increasing its presence, China is warning Manila not to try the same tactics at Scarborough. The Philippines relies on Coast Guard ships and legal arguments. China answers with overwhelming force. This cycle of action and reaction leaves little room for de-escalation. Each move raises the risk of a miscalculation that could spiral out of control. The region teeters on the edge of confrontation. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines, invalidating China's 9-dash line and affirming Manila's rights to key waters. China rejected the verdict outright, dismissing it as illegitimate and continuing its patrols and island building. This legal impasse fuels the ongoing standoffs. Manila anchors its actions in the ruling, while Beijing acts as if it never happened. The two sides operate in different legal realities, making compromise elusive. The Philippines cites international law. China insists on its own version of history and sovereignty. This fundamental disagreement keeps the conflict alive. The world is left to grapple with a superpower defying the rules. The United States stands as a pivotal force in the region, its presence unmistakable and its influence far-reaching. As a global superpower, the US keeps a watchful eye on the unfolding dynamics in the South China Sea, always ready to respond if the situation demands. The bond between Washington and Manila is cemented by a decades-old mutual defense treaty, a formal promise that ties their security interests together. Washington has made its stance clear. Any armed attack on Philippine vessels or forces in the South China Sea could prompt direct US intervention, signaling a strong commitment to its allies' defense. This security guarantee emboldens Manila, giving the Philippines the confidence to assert its rights in contested waters, knowing it has powerful backing. Yet this alliance also raises the stakes dramatically. Any miscalculation or accidental clash could quickly escalate, potentially drawing in the world's two largest militaries into open conflict. The US regularly conducts freedom of navigation operations, sending its warships through contested areas to assert the principle of open seas and challenge excessive maritime claims. These operations are designed to uphold international law and reinforce the global rules-based order, directly challenging China's sweeping territorial claims. From Beijing's perspective, America is an unwelcome intruder, a power meddling in regional affairs and undermining China's ambitions. Chinese officials accuse the US of stoking tensions and using the dispute as a pretext to contain China's rise on the world stage, fueling nationalist sentiment at home. The US presence acts as a deterrent against overt aggression, but it also brings the constant risk of miscalculation and dangerous escalation. Navigating this delicate balance of deterrence and diplomacy is a high-wire act, requiring restraint, communication, and constant vigilance from all sides. One wrong move, one misunderstood signal, could spark a crisis that spirals far beyond the region, threatening global peace and stability. As the superpowers circle and the world watches anxiously, the fate of the South China Sea hangs in the balance, a flashpoint with consequences for us all. The South China Sea dispute reverberates across Southeast Asia, with ASEAN struggling to manage the conflict. Several members have their own claims, but consensus is elusive. China's economic influence divides the bloc. Efforts to create a binding code of conduct have stalled, leaving nations like the Philippines to act alone. Still, Minilateral partnerships are emerging as countries like Vietnam and the Philippines strengthen security ties. The region's nations walk a tightrope, pushing back against Chinese pressure while protecting vital economic ties. China is Southeast Asia's top trading partner, making open confrontation risky. The balancing act between security and prosperity defines the region's geopolitics. Unity remains ASEAN's greatest challenge and hope. Beyond geopolitics, the conflict devastates ordinary lives. Filipino fishermen, once reliant on rich waters like Scarborough Shoal, now face harassment and dwindling catches. Many are too afraid to fish, plunging coastal communities into poverty. China's island building has destroyed coral reefs, causing an ecological catastrophe and threatening marine biodiversity. The South China Sea is not just a strategic waterway, it's a lifeline for thousands. The human and environmental toll adds urgency to the search for a solution. Any resolution must protect the rights and livelihoods of those most affected. Their voices must be central to the conversation. The struggle for the sea is a fight for survival and identity. The South China Sea remains a sea of uncertainty, but hope endures. The Philippines' preventive deployment is bold, but diplomacy is essential to avoid disaster. Open communication and confidence-building measures could help de-escalate tensions. The international community must uphold a rules-based order and support peaceful solutions. Alliances like the US-Philippines partnership are vital for stability. The 2016 tribunal ruling remains the best foundation for a just settlement, even if China rejects it. The story of the South China Sea is still being written. Its outcome will shape the future of global peace. Staying informed and engaged is crucial. The quest for peace concerns us all.